Running Sentences presents A Thieves' Nightmare, Part 9, Deals. Nico and friends find themselves trying to strike a deal with the reluctant keepers of time. This is a work of fiction. Any names, characters, businesses, events, and/or situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, real situations, events, characters, and/or situations, plus any fictional situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or situations, is purely coincidental. Copyright 2022, Michael Hunnery. All rights reserved. Many of the keepers of time were now standing and talking about the crowded stage, and were now making their way towards the edge of this stage. The 20 or so of them were now around this first keeper who had passed judgment on Nico and company, and had said no to Earth getting time energy. The man seemed to want to shout to make all of these other ones stop, but could not get a word in. Excuse me, but keepers of time, if that's what you're calling yourself, if you could all shut up for a second. Nico's plea went nowhere, as there were a few shoves among these older keepers who were trying to get themselves heard. Voices were now rising and bubbling to be heard, forcing others to get louder so that they would, in turn, be heard. The idea that anyone was listening to anyone else was obviously not happening, which led to Nico sitting rather heavily down on one of the theater seats. He hoped that these people would run out of energy rather soon. It was another thing that felt unlikely to him as he watched the mess unfold before them. Both of his friends also sat down beside him as they took in this sight. A full-on argument was now going on, with two sides having formed, but none of them was able to understand one another. Nico, on the other hand, was sort of thinking about other things now that they couldn't be heard, and so he turned to his friends. I do wonder how we would have been able to get sides to talk to us, when there's a good chance we won't understand them. I'm sure there's some sort of translator out there. Otherwise, how have this group done it? They claim to be masters of time. That probably gives them a lot of time to learn stupid things like languages. Dominique was to Nico's right and leaned forward in her chair to look at Temple with a bit of a disappointed look. I hadn't considered that, but yes, thank you for pointing that out. Don't get snippy with me because you didn't think about something, Dominique. Putting his hands in front of their faces, Nico blocked their sight lines to one another. Enough! There is no need for this despite the atmosphere of rampant hostility between everyone. We're here to get out of our problems, not create new ones for ourselves. They both sat back with neither apologizing, and he was pretty sure that they stuck their tongues out at one another before they did so. That he ignored as he rose from his chair, since a little bit of calm had now come from the arguing elders. Alright, time people, have you calmed down a bit? The timekeeper who had passed judgment on them jumped down from the stage and marched over to Nico, all so he could poke him in the chest with a bony finger. Calm down? You created a mess and you want to know if we've calmed down? This keeper of time was nearly on top of Nico, and it was only Dominique and Temple stepping in the way that kept them separated. We are merely making an offer for you to consider. That it has disrupted your way of life is not our fault. We will wait outside while you haggle over your deliberations and argument or whatever you're doing, but none of this is our fault. The three backed away from the seething, angry face of the keeper who had told them no. The rest of the elderly time people were still divided into their two groups, but they also watched them walk away. Temple closed the doors, and the three of them were alone again in this hallway. It took more than a few minutes before anyone spoke. The noise from inside the theater was loud, and didn't seem to want to die down any time soon. Well, that plan doesn't seem like it's going to work. So you two, especially Dominique, since you're our planning person, what now? Well, we wait until there's For sure no, I suppose. Then, when it is a no, we run away, maybe? I don't know, we figure out something. We do something. Isn't it better to have a plan beforehand? Yeah, well, I'm all out of ideas at the moment, Temple. Nico wandered to the far wall to let his two friends argue about what they were doing, while he leaned against it. After a minute he sank down, which led him to sitting on the ground, waiting for things to happen. All this hot noise was going nowhere fast, and made him tired of the entire affair. He told himself not to close his eyes, since he was pretty sure he would fall asleep if he did. Why don't we just go back? We'll be killed? That's so bad at this point, Dominique? Yes, I like living as I've been reminded by you when I try to stop myself from living. Don't tell me you are falling down that rabbit hole. I won't have it. And as much as I don't think our plan will work out, Nico, I also think that surrendering to those on Earth isn't a good idea either. Those two are only interested in how to make money, and you are only a blip in the radar to them. He looked over to Temple, nodded slowly, and then towards Dominique. But the same things are going to happen here, aren't they? These elders are apparently powerful and will use that power at their discretion to wipe away bugs like us. It's only a matter of time before they decide on that, and then what are we to do? Silence came over them once more as no good answers came. It was what Nico feared. This place was going to be hell if interfered with. He began pushing himself off the floor so he could stand up once again. If you two want to continue with the idea of helping out, I won't stop you. I just don't think it's a good plan at the moment. You don't trust people much, do you? Nico frowned as he looked at Dominique and considered what she had said. To trust a person was certainly a risk. To trust a creature who controlled things and time and did whatever they wanted, well, that was a massive leap. Trust has to be earned, and I can give a little bit out to people I know, but yeah, I don't throw it out there for anyone to just take up. A door down the hallway had creaked open loudly, and they turned to see the fleeting image of Julie, who spotted them, and then the door was slammed shut quickly. The three were surprised by all of this, but before they could comment, the theater doors were thrown open with a slightly older lady coming out. The doors were slammed shut behind her. Ah, the trio. Yes, we are the trio. Have you come to a decision yet, miss? Sadly, no. This is no simple affair to think over. We need more time if that is okay with you, Suri. Of course, Miss Keeper of Time. But, we are willing to wait, but standing around out here is a bit much. While you are doing whatever you're doing. We're not like you. We need food and a place to rest. Yes, well, I can see what you mean. I have an assistant who will help you out, and we do have a place that might suit you. All three glanced about themselves, since no assistant was right there to help them. The lady, however, kindly swept her hand to the right, and from that direction came a young man strolling towards them. His name is Combo. Please treat him nicely, otherwise your offer will be outright rejected. The doors to the theater then were opened up, and she slipped back in, and then the doors were closed, rather quietly this time, as the man Combo approached them. He would come to a stop before them, with a slight glare and in very odd-looking clothes that never quite seemed to fit him. Joy, and what fun it is to deal with three humans who aren't very nice. Who says we aren't nice? Combo looked over towards Temple with his glare, trying to bore into her. Julie, the one you chased away. No, that wasn't our fault. She thought something was happening when it wasn't. She chose to let herself guess about what was going on, and didn't listen to us when we said, "Stop, that is not what we are doing." I don't care. You hurt a friend of mine, and you have shown no reason for me to trust you. I will do as Elder Timekeeper has appointed me to do, but nothing else. He spun on his heels and took a few steps away. follow me." They had each been dropped off in a private bedroom, with Nico being the last one to get to his. He found a bed, a closet, and a tray with a cloche sitting on it in front of the bed. Other than that, there was enough room to move about, but it didn't seem like there was much else. He pulled open the cloche to see a meal of some sort. It was green and brown and looked somewhat familiar, but that didn't make it look appetizing to him. He eventually sat down on the bed, picking at the food with his fingers until it was gone. Then, with nothing else to do, he simply went to bed. Though it wasn't a restful night, since it felt like the bed did not want to stop moving once he fully laid out on it. A night of sleeping, but not really sleeping, came to an end with a knock on his door. Not bothering to change, Nico had gone to it to find Combo on the other side. The assistant signaled for him to follow, and so he did so, outside into a garden where Dominique and Temple already sat. There were chairs for 2 other people there, so Nico took up one as Combo vanished. "Good night's sleep, anyone?" A look to his friends told him that they seemed to have enjoyed their night. "No worse than any other. Why?" "It was rough for me, but I and Temple have dealt with worse, I suppose." "My bed kept moving." "Oh, you poor thing." He glared at Temple as she shot him a mocking look that begged for sympathy over something so minuscule. The trio. Are you willing to answer some questions for me before we get to our judgment?" A glance to the entrance of the garden brought the elderly woman who had sent Combo to deal with them. She walked slowly in, coming to a stop right by the available chair. "Yes, of course we are." "Good, and thank you. I believe you're Dominique, correct?" Dominique nodded her head yes, as the old keeper of time lowered herself down onto the chair with some effort. Once down, she sighed in relief and grinned at them as she took them in. "Well, welcome to our world of time, a planet that controls the flow of things as it ebbs and flows through the cosmos of space." "Thanks." The elderly keeper turned her smile firmly onto Nico for his comment. "We do have a tendency to keep things secretive here because of the nature and violence at which time can act. It has destroyed entire galaxies because it shifted a second over." "But isn't time relative? Shouldn't it be moving at its own pace in each different planet?" "Yes, it is. To each planet one lives on and to the entirety of space, it has its own relative bounds. Each has their own that they go by, and something is always circling something bigger to provide energy and time to the thousands and millions of dots across what we know as space. Everything circles around." Excuse me, but why would time shift over? Was it angry or something, and how does it do something like that?" The keeper turned and offered her smile to Temple, who frowned back. "We don't entirely know why it has happened, or why it does happen. Time doesn't talk to us, in a way. We have seen it become angry about things, and usually that anger comes from being abused, let's say." "But what abuse?" Well, Temple, it is only rumors and talk, but some of the elders claim that they have traced incidents back to creatures jumping back and forth in time, rearranging things to meet their own needs. Other times, it's because planets are out of whack and stuff. Time just doesn't seem to like things that aren't in order, I suppose." There was a moment's pause as they all took in the news, and all 3 of them were staring at this keeper of time. "For a group of aliens who claim to be secretive, you certainly are revealing a lot to us. It sounds like you might have accepted the idea of us helping you?" "Yes, maybe. There was a small agreement between a group of us to explore that as an option. We felt you would need to know some information in order to understand that time is not just something to be used by you." Dominique shifted in her chair and seemed unsettled by this whole idea. But it is willing to be used as an energy source, you claim. Time seems very odd, if you don't mind me saying so. It doesn't want to be used, but it lets itself be used. The Keeper of Time smiled again and rose from her chair. She signaled for them to get up as well. There is some stuff to show you around here, if we are to work together. By the way, you can call me Diana. It isn't my name, but it will do for you. I will show you why time is willing to be used as an energy. She brought them out of the garden and crossed the green-blue lawn towards a fountain. They could tell that it was a fountain, even a good 100 feet away, since it was so large and the water was shooting up even higher out of it. This keeper, Diana, brought them right up to the fountain. She dipped her hand into it, but strangely did not come away with any water in her hand. Is that time? Yes, very good. It is indeed time itself, or, well, an essence of what we can capture. It is constantly flowing here at this point, and all around this planet. It has no objective and just floats. So we funnel it into certain things, and it can't complain yet. It has no objective other than to float by. So why would it allow anything to happen to it? Is it not alive? We have seen time-like creatures come to our planet. Was that you, or was that something else? We do not know completely why it allows things to happen to it, but it does, and, I don't know how you would see figures. That's certainly something concerning to think about. But also, as you can see, time... She flexed her hand around, and this essence of time from the fountain wrapped its way around her arm, and then went up it, flowing through. It started shooting up into the air. As if seconds later, it was another fountain that had been created, with how much of it was shooting in the air and just falling slowly back down in a mist of nothingness. It bends to the user and is willing to flow wherever you want it to. That's how we get it to where we want it to go. That doesn't explain having to make it mad to use it as an energy, does it, Miss Diane? That's right, Temple, it doesn't. From our understanding of this matter is that this state, it will flow and go wherever it wants. But this does not produce energy, since it merely goes through things. When you act on it, though, then it becomes something more. Then, as I believe your earthling scientists might proclaim, it reacts because something has acted against it. Something along the lines of any action creates a greater reaction. But why would it allow that to happen? Well, it keeps flowing regardless of the state it is in. As long as it isn't forced into bending into a variety of loops, then it doesn't seem to mind all that much what happens to it. Nico had remained quiet throughout this. Having walked over and stared down at the edges of the fountain. To him, it looked like regular water, but even as his hand went out to touch it, he dare not touch it. It felt off to him, and just that slight bit, something was wrong, and a nagging fear in his mind that there wasn't quite the whole truth being told. You can touch it. Nothing will happen to you. In fact, that's one of the things that made us decide to try out your offer. Dominique was by his side in a second. You mean because time didn't take him when it had the chance to so many times before? And, by the way, what has time done to those people it has taken? I've seen some gruesome things because it only took half of a person off of a boat, and we don't know why. Well, yes, it does have the habit of acting out in strange and unusual ways. We've never seen it take half a person before. It would certainly be a sight. But no, we don't really know why, other than it's angry. Temple was now on Nico's other side, and when he looked over to her, confused. It felt like they were protecting him, which was very nice to have. But why? So far, these aliens hadn't exactly threatened them. You should tell us right now if you're only after Nico and Dominique, because they haven't been taken by time. The elder, who'd been staring at Nico, shifted her gaze toward Dominique as if she'd seen something rather delicious. Oh yes, I'd forgotten that bit. Good news for us then, isn't it? I and Dominique are not tools to be used by you. Are you not? Is your proposed offer then withdrawn? Because what you presented us makes you seem exactly like that. Tools to be used to get others to come visit us, and our offer of time energy and its unlimited powers. These two aren't here to be exploited by the likes of you who are exploiting time for energy. We might not be exploiting time. I have another thing to show you if you will follow me, or then we can talk further about how this will go. She began strolling away towards a small building just off to the right. It looked very shed-like. Had it not been painted blue-green, it might have stood a chance at standing out against this dreary blue-green atmosphere that seemed to permeate everywhere. The hum and thrum of noise from a machine working away greeted them when they came into this place. It was a small area stacked with mechanical arms that were going up and down, similar to a locomotive. There was also a large tube that had a blue hue substance running through it, probably an essence of time of some sort, that would run past these arms. And then about halfway down, it went from this blue color to a red one, and then exited the shack via a tube downward. This, by the way, is where we massage time to help it get along on its journey into a better state, a usable state, a pliable state. Time isn't energized until you make it so. Yes, our machine does that job, and now that you found that out, I don't think I will ever want you to leave our little humble planet. What? Why? Oh, it's simple, dear Miss Temple. You know too much, and once people find out that time is an actual source of energy, it will come bounding back on us and not them. Time acts out in anger because it is being acted upon. What did you think was going to happen when somebody massages time and makes it angry? It isn't our fault it escapes occasionally to random planets or anything like that. No, it acts out because it wants to. We cannot control it fully. The three had begun to back away from Diana to get towards the door. Nico was the first to look back, to see that the doorway was blocked. In it stood Combo, along with Julie. The two assistants were trying to stand tall and block the way. Neither, though, had a look that gave off the feeling of being particularly strong or being able to withstand somebody barging past them. Looks, however, never told all that needed to be known, and Nico was not sure whether or not to trust his sight at this moment. You cannot run. There is no way off this planet unless we allow it. Or if someone invades it. Good luck to them trying to find us. Not waiting around to see if this was true or not, Nico bowled his way past the two assistants, who didn't put up much of a wall. Out of the little shack the three came, with Nico falling down, since he was first out and had to go through two people, or two aliens. Dominique and Temple were right behind him, and grabbed him up, hauling him as they ran. Dominique pointed towards a nearby garden with large hedges, and they went that direction. If the keeper or assistants followed, they made no noise once this little group was in this hedge maze space. They took a few turns here and there, dodging past openings of hedges and so on and so forth, all three doing their best, before they finally came to a winding stop at a dead end. All three were doing their best to catch their breath and look around in a panic. That did not go well, sorry. Shut up, Dominique. You couldn't have known this was going to happen, and even if you did, you were trying to help us. I think I came through a space like this when I arrived, maybe? Maybe it was more garden-like. You think we have a chance to escape, Nico, she said. I know what she said, but Who wouldn't say that in her situation, Temple? We have to keep moving now, because if we don't, who knows what they will actually do to us. I'd ask where we are going to go, but I guess at this point it doesn't much matter, does it? We need to keep going, and fast. Nico nodded to Dominique as her words hit him, and they all began to plod through this maze space. But with the high hedges and plenty of openings, it took a while to get anywhere at any speed. Temple took the lead after a few failed turns into dead ends from Nico, and they soon found an exit with them staring at a nearby shack, but nobody around. That looks like... Yes, it does, Temple. I wonder if it is what we think it is. Perhaps we might throw a wrench in the works of their machinery. Hopefully it is the same shack, or maybe if it's a different one, it'll be similar and we can ruin it, and as long as the Keepers of Time aren't around it. Let's go. There was silent nods from Temple and Nico as they went towards the door of the shack. They rushed in with held breath, hoping for the best, and at least Nico was expecting the worst, and for it to end poorly for them. It was empty, though, aside from the machine, which was still pumping and thrumming away. The essence running through the tube, doing its thing, going from blue-hued to red. Temple was the first to approach the machine, looking at it while flexing her fingers, eager to try and figure out what to do to it. So what's the plan? What do you mean, what's the plan? We have no plan other than to destroy some stuff, to distract them so that we can run around, causing me more chaos, and they will eventually open a doorway and throw us off this planet, maybe. Dominique, who had wandered towards the far wall of the shack in search of stuff, had come back with an oversized wrench in her hands. She carried it over to the machine, ready to swing it at it. Come on, Nico. You're good at causing the unexpected to happen. Help us with this. That the two women were eager to do this seemed about on par with what he knew of them. They were chaotic and kept him guessing as to what was going to happen next. He decided to look about to see if he could do anything to help, but aside from the wrench in the room, it was barren of anything else. It didn't matter much as the wrench in Dominique's hands smashed down on the machine, which rang off it and caused an awful racket to come from the time pump massage machine, whatever it was that they were giving it. The machine began ringing about with an awful racket as Dominique's arms seemed to tremble and shake from the blow. That did something to it. I think the pipe is now broken as a result. She stepped back as there was a lot of hissing sort of noises that came along with a bunch of steam near where she had hit this pipe. The steam seemed to be some sort of time essence or something else, but I couldn't really tell. It seemed loud and angry and didn't really feel good to be around. To Nico, this looked both good and bad as he stepped forward and pulled the two women back away, just to keep them safe. They both looked surprised at the sudden pull, but the machine then sparked and then screamed a high-pitched wail that kept going up and up, before it came to a sudden stop with a puff of smoke. The arms that had been moving at a rapid pace slowed and then came to a stop. Steam seemed to be coming from the seams in the pipe, and just about anywhere that it could escape that seemed overpressurized. And since it was gathering at a worrying rate, but not really evaporating, it seemed like they were soon in a foggy, filled-up, humid room. Okay, we ruined that. Shall we go ruin something else now? How about parts of the house? The clocks in the ballroom. Those seemed like they did something. Don't just run off. We have to run, or we're going to get caught. Now come on. Dominique grabbed a hold of him from what she could see where he was and began heading for the door as the machine began to cough and sputter some more. A second later it was making a whole lot more noise that sounded unpleasant with lots of little pops and bangs and explosions going off. This followed by heavy smoke that now took over the steamy, wispy, smoky fog, and so they made for the door with haste. With a bit of hustle, the three ran from the shack, which was now falling apart and in on itself. They were aiming towards the massive house in front of them. None looked behind to see what was going on. Nico wanted to, but feared seeing a sight that was somewhat familiar to him. The one where a wispy blue cloud took over and swallowed everything. It still haunted his memory, and reminded him that the marble was still in his pocket. Almost absent-mindedly he reached for it, but stopped himself. It didn't matter right now, and they had more important things to worry about. And anyway, the door to the house was right in front of them, so there was no time to look elsewhere or touch that marble, unless he wanted to run into a door, or the walls. Into this silly mansion they went, and found themselves in a hallway from before. At least, to Nico, it looked like the hallway they'd been in before, and felt opulent and nice, and was nice-looking, and went on for what seemed to be miles. But it also looked similar and different at the same time with the way things were here, so he didn't know what to trust. Anyway, he barely had time to think about these matters, as he barely had time to think about anything, as Dominique first headed off in one direction, and then Temple was heading off in the opposite one. The two came to a stop when they realized the other one wasn't following them. It took them a second to get sorted out, and both heading the same way, with Nico trailing along, trying to keep up. Along the way, every now and then they would throw open a door to a room to look inside, which gave him a moment to calm down and breathe, but it would only inevitably last for a few seconds before they were off again. Many, many, many doors. Down from the first one they'd checked, Temple sprinted into one room. Dominique was caught off guard, but then looked to him. "Stay here and be a lookout. We'll be back." She vanished off through the door as he blinked and tried to take it in. Then, in a worry, he looked about to see if anyone was around. What was he to do if anyone showed up? Panic shot through him as he looked one way and then the other. His head was trying to keep up with his need to look in both directions at the same time. Eventually he had to stop, though, since his neck began to hurt, and there was nothing to be seen. Nobody was coming, and he was left alone in an empty hallway. His heart was pumping hard, though, and he was ready to jump when a bunch of noise came from the room behind him. His heart did not want to leave his chest, but it did force Nico to do a little hop forward when he heard it, then swiveled about so he could look through the door to see that the ladies were busily smashing up clocks on a table. Knowing that they were safe, he sighed and relaxed and decided to watch them instead of the hallway, since it was far more interesting to look at. The job was soon done, and the two came running back from the room with all the clocks smashed to bits. "Okay, so what now, you two?" "I don't know. What do you want to do, Temple?" "Well, I doubt that's all the clocks they had, or that was the only machine they had to massage time, so I say we explore some more and see what else we can go and destroy." "Yeah, agreed. Nico, what's your say on this matter?" "No idea anymore. I feel like things are getting heavy, though." "You mean like when time was angry with you, too?" He hemmed and hawed, trying to find those right words. The look on his face said he wasn't entirely sure if it was or wasn't. "Yes, but different?" "How different? If time is coming for us because it feels heavy, we should know." If I knew, I would tell you, but right now it just feels different, so maybe it's doing something, and maybe, I don't know. Let's just keep doing whatever we're doing, because at this point, what have we got to lose?" They looked to one another, trying to figure out if this was a good or a bad thing, then shrugged. Off they all went once again. It took a little while to find the doorway out of this endless hallway, but they got there and spilled out into a fancy garden of flowers and flowering bushes. It smelled quite flowery, which hit Nico hard and drove him back a few paces as the others continued onward undisturbed. The two spotted something on the far side of the garden, and maybe even outside of it a little bit. Being in racket mode, they just went and wanted to do just that. Nico found himself keeping a watchful eye out, though as he slowly followed, trying to keep them safe, even though no one was showing up. There should be these timekeepers here, yet no one was there to stop them. It was odd, and he didn't like this. His pace hurried up to catch up to his friends, since he felt like something was about to happen, and he'd rather have it occur when he was around people he knew, and could at least trust somewhat. A short distance after the garden rose another simple blue and green hued shack, hidden in the blue-hued haze. His friends had already gone in the front door, and since there was a humming noise inside, he figured it was another time-massaging machine. Nico took up station near the door, watching over things, ready for anything and ready for nothing at the same time. It's what he'd done before, and, well, he didn't know what else to do. So he watched the empty, green, grassy lawn and gardens before him that contained the garden and the house, and off in the distance there appeared to be more gardens. He wasn't sure, but he let it go and waited. The calmness of it all kept getting interrupted as the blue haze would suddenly go white in spots, and began looking like a shape of people, only to disappear a second later. Nico would blink many times, trying to see these things again. It was a bit like when he got lights in his eyes and then saw spots that wouldn't go fully away. They were there, but they weren't there. All done in here. Let's move on. She moved a step or two to the side as Temple came out, and followed by a lot of smoke from this shack. Dominique had kept her eyes on him as he just stared off the garden beyond. Nico. He looked over a bit concerned. Sorry, I thought I was seeing things. What is it this time? More ghosts? He shrugged and pointed towards the garden. More and more shapes, humanoid and some not so humanoid, of white light had appeared. The two women glanced over, and both also stared at the sight. What if these timekeepers, these elder keepers, what if they took over what time was and enslaved it and used it for what they wanted? Shouldn't they have exploited these things more then? They have the power to energize and a boundless, endless resource, and yet they're holding back because... The question sat in the air for a while as they thought about it. This distracting sight of these figures popping up and now walking about the place didn't fully register with them, nor the fact that the air was suddenly lighter, happier. There was more and more noise filtering through to them, and it just seemed like the place became easier to be around. Although it was now slowly becoming harder and harder not to notice, and it was Temple who began looking about furiously trying to comprehend it all, pointed it out to the others. There was nods all around, but Dominique was the first to speak up. Okay, maybe something like that might be a possibility from all signs. You think, Dominique? Shut up, Temple. You were eager to question the idea a couple of seconds ago. Yeah, but time changes. Can we concentrate on the problem before us instead of fighting between one another? No, we can't, because what the hell are we going to do about these things now? Are they going to stop us? Are they going to attack us? Or are they going to return us home? What are they? Dominique was waving her hand at the sight before them, and now the thick crowd of ghostly white figures that were people-like were now solidly here for the most part. It was only the sound of the machine short-circuiting behind them in the shack that brought them out of their sort of staring stupor. I don't know about you two, but I say we keep doing what we're doing. Breaking things? Yeah, Dom, in case it helps these poor figures. As long as they don't harm us and we're doing good for them, why not? And they might help us find a way out of here. Well, yeah, that's kind of sounds like an idea, Dominique. What you're doing is working, so not sure what else to do. Well, let's go with it. And how are we just going to walk through these masses? They went back to staring at the figures for a few more seconds, trying to figure out exactly that. Well, we can walk through time, so maybe we can walk through them, no problem. It doesn't seem like they're solid. She took a few steps forward, then retreated a step, since one of the things walked in front of her. The creatures seemed to be walking all around, busy with something, trying to be somewhere else, but all going off in odd directions, and generally actually ignoring them. What have you done? You have cursed us! The trio turned to see the keeper, Diana, trying to weave her way around the figures towards them. She was doing her best to avoid these figures, but on occasion would go right through them, with a step through their legs or their bodies, or an arm's swing would slide right through the body. Nico grabbed Temple and Dominique and pushed them towards the crowd going away from the keeper. No time to think, time to go, let's go. The run through the many ghostly figures kept going. None of them wanted to stop, and the grass lawn kept stretching out in front of them, for miles it seemed, as did the house which they ran alongside. It all kept going and going, with the old lady not keeping up, but her yells could be heard from behind. At one point they veered off towards the side of this place, and went as far as they could away from the house, a distance of maybe 500 yards before everything dropped away into nothing. They didn't stop their now fast walk, but they did get as close as they dared before coming a little bit back. Do you think this place is like a ring? What do you mean, Temple? The planet, or whatever this place is. I bet it goes around in a ring-like shape, then that we are going to wind up back where we started eventually. They slowed down further, thinking about this. There really was no escape if that was true. Also, it would make sense, since this crazy-looking building and why everything seemed to keep going and felt off. Nico's thought about this made him nod along, that this was correct in some form. He didn't want it to be, but what could he do if it was? What are we going to do then? If we go that way, we run into the keepers we're trying to run away from. And if we run in the other direction, we're definitely going to run into these elder keepers. Why not face them then, if we can find them? I mean, they seem to be avoiding these white ghost-like figures. The sound of huffing and puffing came to them, and so they turned to see whoever it was. They were still a distance away, trying to avoid walking through these beings. Eventually, Julia appeared with Combo. Both looked rather peeved at having to chase someone. You three have ruined everything. Good? I mean, it doesn't look like things were going well here. And apparently you were taking advantage of time and its powers. What did you expect us to do? Just go along with your plans? We were not. Okay, before we start arguing, perhaps Mr. Combo and or Miss Julie could bother to explain how you were not doing any such thing. I mean, you're saying you weren't doing that such thing. Why not just explain it to us and get us on your side? To us, it just looks like you were keeping these figures, this time, I guess, and keeping it down to use it as energy, and now it's free. Of course we were keeping this stuff down. Do you know what it does to space, to worlds, to eternity? No, Combo, we don't know. That's why we're asking you, dumbass. Combo would growl, but didn't say anything further. Meanwhile, the figures and their shapes were beginning to close in on them. With less and less space, this group began to crowd around one another. We are content to wait here and deal with these creatures. I mean, we apparently have been helping them. If you aren't willing to say why this is a bad thing, we will let them just take you, probably. While Julie and Combo shared a look of distrust between them, they were crowded in a bit further towards one another. They will kill all things if let loose. And why would they do that, Miss Julie? It's all they know how to do. They're carnivorous. All these things do is eat all that's put in their way. These creatures don't appear to be doing any of that right now. Shouldn't a freed creature want to eat and gorge themselves? As my friend Dominique points out, these things you're so afraid of don't appear to be doing anything to us. You two don't get it. We've been feeding them and keeping them happy. They wouldn't do anything to us, but now they're free, and who knows what will happen. So, your alien race has trapped another alien race because they eat things? All things. Nico eyed Combo, who interrupted him. He wasn't sure why, but he just didn't like the man. Forgive me, all things. And this is a terrible fate for the entirety of space, since it will destroy it? Yes, exactly. Not that we believe you, but is there any way to recapture them? The two workers for the elders looked to one another, and then back to the trio. There was a rather lackluster shrug from them. That, Nico decided, was nice to know, since it meant that things were about to get very interesting before they went to shit, if they weren't already in shit. So if you don't know how to recapture them, why are you coming to us asking us to stop them? Because you might be able to undo what you've done? Yes, what she said. Well, we can't. Those two smashed up the machines gleefully without concern for how they worked. And clocks. So, yeah. No idea what to do. By the way, has anyone asked these creatures how they feel about all of this? Or have you just been running away, scared of being eaten or destroyed or whatever it is? There was a silence as everyone glanced about at the figures who were tightening in on them one more time. End of part 9 of A Thieves' Nightmare. Thank you for listening.